Hey, my name is Rich Montbrand. I'm Liatrio's Chief Revenue Officer. Thanks for joining us today. We're here to ask a question and discuss some vendor lock-in alternatives. So joining me today are two of our firm's top experts, Bjorn and Oliver. Gentlemen, would you mind introducing yourselves? Bjorn, you go first.
Hi, everybody. Beyond Edwin. I'm a strategic partner here at Liatrio. I also lead our Dojo enablement practice. Super excited to be here and share our thoughts and opinions unfiltered.
Oliver?
Hey, folks. I'm Oliver Eikenberry. I'm one of our principal architects here at Liatrio, also our product owner for our platform service engineering service offerings. So super excited to talk to you more about what we've got to offer around this, and we'll pass it back to you, Rich.
Great. Thanks, gentlemen. So you're probably wondering, maybe wondering who is Liatrio and what is this discussion really about? Well, we're an engineering-led consulting services firm focused on the end-to-end software delivery path to make it faster and better so companies can create their digital value and delight customers faster and better. So that's what we're dedicated to. We've got over 11 years in business. We're founder-led and founder-funded. Our real focus is on digital efficiency and effectiveness. It's what we call DVE, and we've enabled over thousands of engineers in the Liatrio way. We kind of consider ourselves more like Yoda than Luke Skywalker. And we've served all industries, but most of the work that we've done has been concentrated in regulated companies, finance, retail, aerospace, and a lot more, but those are the primary ones. And we tend to partner with some industry leaders, Spotify, Backstage, GitHub, you name it, Honeycomb. We're usually side by side with those major open source projects. And really what our engagement goal is with you is to empower your enterprise to deliver digital value, DV as we call it, at scale, faster, safer, forever. So what do we mean by digital value? Let me ask Bjorn.
Yeah, in digital value is a very tough thing to articulate, right? A physical value is easy. Things that you build, if you touch and feel it, it's great. So in our world, in the world of software delivery, a digital value is a combination of the software products and services that is providing an actual value to the customer. The initiation of that value, we strongly believe that it always starts from code. A code is where you could create scalable digital value for a customer that can have long time return on investments and such. So, in very simple terms, in the world of software products and services, where the digital value is created is in code.
Gotcha. That's great. That's a great point. So as we move to the next slide, our desire is that your firm own its digital destiny. We don't think you should outsource your digital destiny to any other firm. And so we think it's more than a buzzword. We're going to talk about how you create it and how do you manufacture it within your company and how do you measure it. So it's not just another buzzword bingo play. This little bottom graphic on the left is from our T2 framework on how we benchmark customers and digital value. I won't be able to go into it now. We're going to go into it in much detail in our next webinar series. This is one of many strategies that we're going to talk about in our webinar series. And how do you create digital value? And our point of view is that the target ideal state is 40% digital value, 40% overhead, 20% waste. And the top average company is kind of how we see from our T2 framework, the average company. So we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about how do you get freedom from vendor lock-in and what are those critical success elements before I turn it over to the real experts, Oliver and Bjorn. We believe one, you need a foundational platform architecture. We'll talk about that. We think you have to have an individual internal developer platform base to accelerate from. We also feel that you have to have a pilot team, people that are going to add value, bottoms up, tops down to the platform so you can go fast forever. So here's the question, which is the next slide that we're going to go through. The question really is, do proprietary platforms and licensing make any sense anymore? Bjorn? Oh, no, Oliver. I'm going to go to Oliver first. I went to Bjorn, you last. Oliver, what do you think?
I don't think they make any sense anymore. They're too expensive. They're hard to maintain. You don't get the features you want, and a lot of times you get things you don't need. So I would encourage people to really evaluate and think about this going forward because the open source space has really grown and accelerated to make this an untrue statement.
Yeah, so if we click the next slide and we show the box, you just articulated that cost of control problem, right? Excessive license costs. I mean, I've heard of customers that have had a 10x increase. We've all read about it as well, from certain firms. And bloat. What is bloat? Bloat is extra features that, firms pack in because, company ABC wants it. And that's value that's built into the code that you didn't ask for, you didn't want, or it's just all automatically costed in. And what about engineering talent? It is harder and harder to come by great engineering talent, especially limited vendor specific skills to support the proprietary platform. What about taking control and to delivering cost savings, Bjorn? What's our point of view on that? And well, let me take a step back. Do you think that proprietary platforms and licensing makes sense anymore?
Absolutely not. I want to tie it back to like the first question you asked me, Rich, like the digital value, right?
Sure, go ahead, go for it.
There's a sense of ownership in delivering the digital value. If you own it end to end, I think you're attached to that process, and it's passion driven. You're bound to create the best products and services. Platform applies in the similar sense because platform is the underlying backbone of how enterprises should deliver software products and services out to their customers. And if you cannot own where it's running and how it's being built, you may not be able to control what kind of products or services the customer need to do. So absolutely, I 100% agree that proprietary platforms and licensing doesn't make any sense anymore. What's the alternative, right? So it's open source. It's how you build, how you own it, how you scale it. How do you have different set of skills for your people to understand what that ecosystem looks like? And how do you own it end to end from building to development to deployments to maintenance and so on and so forth?
I just wanted to reinforce before we get into the how and the what, how do you take control and deliver cost savings and really free the organization, right? Because we believe, but our customers also agree, because we think you could save a lot of money with at least a 200% return. And who doesn't need to save money these days, for a variety of different reasons? Because open source platforms eliminate that confiscatory license charge, and you still can have the same level of safety, better level of safety, actually, we could argue, and we're going to talk about that, and obviously a greater level of control than somebody else. And we also believe it'll simplify your infrastructure and operations stance. And so you can focus on innovation, not platform management and operations that the proprietary platform vendor has to force on you. And then ultimately you're going to get better business velocity.
Yeah. So how do we get started? Don't start the full big bang approach. We have first principles. We live and breathe that. We take it to our customers. We infect them with our first principles in the best possible manner. Like take small steps, small batch, get fast feedback, have a mindset of experimentation, have an open and honest communication channels, and focus on the flow. I think the flow is where you're kind of attesting the value that that's coming from your steps, and you do from that. The first baby step I would say you should take is some sort of an assessment of what and how the software delivery happens within your organization and how much of dependency you have on this vendor lock-in platforms and where and how. Do they have really good security posture and such? Do they have good quality gates and control? Are you able to release features that's delivering customer value out to the door faster with the right security and quality gates in place? And the tool that we always use is value stream mapping. That will visualize your end-to-end.
Value stream mapping, that sounds like a kind of, what is that?
So it's mapping of an end-to-end stream of value going from ideation to all the way to the customer. What are all the steps it takes? What are all the people that's involved? What are all the tools that supports it? And if you see a big block, hey, this tool is where all the magic is happening. If it's a platform that's not under your control, it becomes a black box. There's no way that you could go in there and tweak that to make it efficient for your flow for the organization. And that's how we start with the process of envisioning the end-to-end flow of how software delivery happens in the organization. And from there, you'll obviously get the data, subjective and objective, both from both the lenses, and see where the biggest pain point is. Go after that and see how you can substitute and get into a better architecture, embrace open source mindset
I like that.
first, and
I
all
like
these
that.
things.
Because we could do that with any customer. They don't have to do this whole open source platform thing and vendor lock-in, but we could start with a customer that way and help them see
Mhm.
how much we could save them in terms of velocity. But what we're showing here on this chart is this is not some, idea that we have. We actually have a reference architecture. We believe that open source is ready for prime time. It's safe, it's secure, and it's well supported. And we believe it's a foundation that enables enterprises to go fast forever. Oliver, why don't you help us drain this chart? You're our platform expert. What does this mean to our end user clients?
So really what this means is this is how we think about and lay out what a platform is. And a platform is really a product you're building for your internal customers within your organization, your engineers who are building the applications, the services and capabilities that then you sell to your customers or that help provide services to your customers, whether you're an airline or a bank or other system. And the way we structure this is we really think about this as I said, it's a product. So you have platform customers, your internal teams. We want to give them user interfaces that they can work really well with that are engaging, easy for them to use, easy for them to discover things, whether that's a GUI, a CLI, an API, or just documentation. So that's our internal developer platform, the IDP, the piece that really exposes all the services and capabilities for that. And then underlying all of that, tied directly to all of your Git repositories. So everything is code. We have our CI/CD pipelines that do all of your continuous integration and building of your applications. Any data ops or AI or ML ops that you might be working on, these are all sub capabilities or domains within your organization that you're going to have specific services and capabilities that you build to provide tooling for your applications and your teams to leverage to provide value out to the larger organizations. And this goes all the way down to security and even templated or golden paths that are really meant to accelerate a team to get started so that within minutes they have something deployed that they can start using to push for production very, very quickly. And this works
Like
both in
an
the private
MVP?
cloud.
Sorry to
Pardon?
interrupt you. You're talking about an MVP?
Well, actually, no, we call this a TVP. So when we
There you
start out
go.
working on this, we build what's called the thinnest viable platform. And so when we do this, we may not build all of these capabilities in all the domains at once. We're going to focus on the ones that you need to get started for the particular team or teams that we're working with initially to focus in and get customer feedback and short batch, very fast delivery style with them. So we're bringing all the principles that you would normally use to send value out to your customers externally, to your customers internally with a fast feedback loop and a product mindset. And as we do this, we also support this work with a private cloud, public cloud, or even on-prem or edge infrastructure as we're working through this, depending on what that organization needs.
And from my experience, I think that's probably the biggest difference between Liatrio and a vendor or any other services provider is the TVP versus MVP, right? We want the thinnest thing coming out the fastest way so we can learn, iterate, grow, rinse, and repeat. Is that right?
Absolutely. We want that fast feedback because a lot of organizations will spend months or years building an MVP. We want to do this and accelerate you on the TVP from start to finish in just a few weeks of time to show the mean time to value that you can have and obtain using a platform built like this on open source tools.
Great. Before we show our phases, let's take a look at the stack. I mean, this is not, we've got pretty much a well-defined stack of players that we work with that we think are best of breed and best in class. Now that may change by customer, but why don't you talk a
Mhm.
little bit about who they are and what
Sure.
we've chosen?
Sure thing. So as you alluded to earlier, Rich, we're a partner with Backstage and Spotify. And so that's our preferred internal developer portal that we will come in and help set up. We can do that very quickly. In terms of how we work with CI, and CD, GitHub, GitLab are both organizations that we work with. We're a partner with GitHub today. And then we really want to leverage Argo CD for that rapid, continuous delivery model of deploying on demand whenever a change is made all the way out to production when your tests are set up correctly. We're strong, firm believers in using Kubernetes for workload management. When we talk about FinOps, we're talking about using tools like Cloud Custodian, KubeCost, among many others. For automated governance, we're really big on using the Sigstore stack and Open Policy Agent and the space in that place that GitHub also plays in very strongly and leverages as part of their build-outs that they're now offering. From an infrastructure as code perspective, we're big proponents of using Terraform, whether that's HashiCorp's Terraform, if you're into using their licensed version, or using the newest version of OpenTofu, which is the open source version of Terraform, most recently that has come out. Observability, again, we use a lot of OpenTelemetry. That's one of our core foundational technologies in the observability space that we use. We're partners with Honeycomb. But we've also implemented Grafana as part of this tech stack for the observability. So we can move between tools with a different customer based on what their needs are or where they're at today with the tools they may already have to establish this.
By the way, we on observability and telemetry, we've actually got some leading engineers that are major contributors to all these platforms, all these open source
Yes.
platforms, don't we? Like Adriel and Blair and all those guys.
Yes, we've had
Created plugins, right?
Yes, and also with the six source stack with Ahmed on our team, he's contributed back to that model as well to help address that tool. So we're huge open source proponents. We contribute back to the community very heavily in these spaces.
So we're like 8 of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 in most of these in terms of excellence.
Yes.
And if Chris was listening, our founder, he'd probably say we're 10 on 10 out of everything. And I believe we are as well. But we're pretty good at this stuff. So let's talk about the how, unless you wanted to drain any of the others components.
The only other thing I'll just mention really quickly is just the template and golden paths. We want to produce a template or a golden path, a quick starter application type that you can go in and provision and deploy the infrastructure and the app example within a few minutes so that you can get started. So you don't have to worry about that as an app dev. You can really start to leverage the value of the platform and accelerate the way you build your apps by having this foundational start. And that's where we even mentioned .NET and Java. And when we're talking about open source tools, we know that Java is one of the most heavily used languages in the community, and it's open source. So it's got to be safe because everybody's using it and have been using it for over 20 years.
Yep, and I still love Spring. All right, let's let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about the how. Thanks, Oliver. So this is kind of a what this is like a lot of boxes and numbers. This almost looks like a little Gantt-y, little bit waterfall-y, but we're not waterfall at all. What does this roadmap say, Oliver or Bjorn? Whoever wants to take it.
Sure, I'll jump into this one first. So really what this shows us is this shows the phases that we would go through in the first 12 weeks that we're going to work with an organization to build that TVP. One of the first things we did, as we talked about before, is we're going to start running some VSMs to really understand in depth all of your processes around delivery, what your platform may do today, the tools you're using, where the gaps and the struggles are, and the experiences that people have.
I can get a platform in 4 weeks, so I can get a TVP in 4 weeks that's functional. What kind of functional output do I get as a client? Give me an example. I mean, that sounds almost unrealistic.
So as an example, we're going to come in with an opinionated build out of that TVP that we've already established from working with multiple clients over several years in this space. That comes in and is going to give you that base foundation set of tools. It's going to give you the ability to have CI, ability to have CD with deployments. We're going to have Kubernetes and Argo set up, as well as potentially some automated governance and an IDP, all within a delivered package. That what we're doing is we're bringing that in and establishing it very quickly so that we can leverage working with one of your teams to get them using it and get feedback almost immediately on anything we might need to change to make this work for you and be what you need to do on your journey as you go forward.
So how do we work on the onboarding, Bjorn? What's been some of your personal experience? If you look at the next phase, which kind of runs, iteration 2 is pretty much the rest of the engagement, weeks 2 through 12. How does onboarding work with some of your client experiences?
Yeah, before getting there, so the reason why it's 4 weeks, because we don't want to go in a silo and build a platform much longer than that. If the customers don't use what we're building in the first phase, then we're going to go back. Like the shorter the cycle is, the lesser rework it needs to happen, so we can take the feedback and reflect on that. So
that's a great point. Before we dive in, I'm going to dive down another rabbit hole. How do we handle those that we build it and you will come? There's so many challenges that we hear where people built a great platform, but the product teams are just not using it. How do we get them to work with us in this process, in these phases, so it's not if we build it, they will come type of situation?
Yeah, I would say without a customer, don't even start building a platform, right? It starts, the VSM needs a customer.
I mean, with the product teams involved.
Product teams, your internal customers, which is your internal application development team, your product teams, however you call it within your organization. Don't even start building a platform without talking to your customer first. Starting from the VSM that we run, because you need the customers' teams have gone through their typical path to prod and what are the pain points, their experience and such. It starts from there to getting into our opinionated platform capabilities that Oliver pointed out, saying this is years of experience that we have, we collectively put together. This is what a logical starting point would look like, which takes you the right path of modern software delivery. So this is your starting point, but get feedback, get to the customer as soon as possible, let them get onto the platform, let them go to production with the platform a few times, so you understand what it really takes for that organization, that customer specifically to do it. That's what onboarding is all about. Onboarding is about pairing with the internal customers of the platform, working with them to see how they use it, and it's learning for both the sides. It's learning for the teams or you're using the platform to understand they need some new skills because they cannot control anymore with switches and dials or buttons and clicks. It may be through code, like we want it to be. So how do you learn that technology? How do you learn the tech stack to control your own destiny of where the software is running and deploying? And similarly, you learn about the customers, their behaviors, where they're struggling. Do they know those practices pretty well? Then you add on more of the supportive white glove enablement, dojo-like engagements and such in the future and whatnot.
So what I'm hearing is the VSMs are a great way to get everybody working together, remove some, because I think we've removed a lot of that friction. Because sometimes it's not wrong or bad, but there's just some friction between the INO and the product teams
Mhm.
for a variety of different reasons. And the VSMs do a good job of removing that friction, getting everybody to work together on the outcomes, the business outcomes, not the technical battles or whatever the challenges might be within your organization. Now, let's pivot. Let's talk about how do we then iterate and expand, and then how do we scale? How does that work? And anybody else, anybody can take that. I don't know. Oliver, why don't you take a crack?
Sure. So when we want to iterate and expand on the platform, as Bjorn said, we're going to get that feedback right away. And so if we're bringing a team onto the platform, they say, "Hey, well, we need this capability because this is what our business model requires us to be able to do, and this is a need we have." We're going to immediately with the platform start adding that capability in partnership with that team, and or even teach that team how they can add that capability to the platform themselves. So we want the platform itself to be open source. We want teams to be able to have the ability to add capabilities to it, while working with us as well. So that's how we're going to iteratively do that. Is we're going to build a backlog of, hey, we're working with 3 teams onboarding. These 3 teams all have different requirements, but the one that has the highest business value or the highest priority based on the organizational needs, we're going to work on building that capability out really quickly to provide it to that team and immediately get feedback from them. So it's built, we're building with them, not for them.
So I'm almost getting a platform at the end of 12 weeks. And just based on my experience and where I've been, I don't think many of the companies that I've been with, they can even complete an assessment in less than 12 weeks. And here we're giving clients a full breadth platform in 12 weeks. I think that's great. But let's move on to the next slide. And let's talk about this reference architecture in action, maybe, and talk about deployment flow a little bit. And I'll let anybody take this one. But I think what I liked, one of our best engineers told me when I first came over to this company is that, Rich, with minimum work, without even breaking a sweat, we can get 20% improvement, 20 to 35% velocity improvement. And I think our average, I've done a regression analysis on our average from our clients. We actually get 93.17% velocity improvement. Let's talk about that, how that works with the deployment flow.
Sure. So this is an example deployment flow we would use with an opinionated platform we set up. And what this does is, the nice thing is when a team onboards to the platform, we've automated the setup of most of this configuration. So the team gets a repository, they get registered with Argo, and they have the ability to start deploying their code within the first few hours of onboarding the platform. And so this involves several repositories around your container, your app code, and your infrastructure as code. So as you start to pick those capabilities that you need, those are going to be put in source code in the repository, which is then going to tie to Argo. And Argo is going to manage those deployments for you. And as it sees commits happening in your repository for your app, after those are built, it's actually going to go deploy those automatically out to your Kubernetes, your shared multi-tenant Kubernetes cluster, into the right space in a secure way. And each team has the agency to do the things that they need to do to their application to get it deployed really quickly. And so this is just a really good example of how teams are leveraging Backstage to use templates that then produce the repositories to get them started. And they're already configured to deploy quickly from the original onboarding to the platform.
And all the engineering teams are doing it, not somebody from the outside. We're
Correct.
working paired side by side. So they're like Yoda, they're going to go fast forever, and we're not going to stay there forever. We want to get this done and get out.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's go to a live example. Let's go to Bjorn. I think you worked with this customer. Real world example. You took them from 6 weeks to less than an hour. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, this is great. Oliver and I did this together. So we were
Of
the
course
two
you did.
this too, right? This was a fun, complex enterprise, their aerospace industry, and they were struggling. They were kind of bringing the practices of legacy enterprises into software delivery, where software delivery needs to happen more autonomous, more automated, more continuous than how it's supposed to be. So as always, we started with a VSM, and we took one of their existing product, which has been used by 90% of the customers and such, and it's high critical, high visible product. And we went through their value stream mapping, and we discovered the flow efficiency. No surprise, they were like less than 3% efficient. That means on a typical engineer in that organization, in the team, is spending only 3% of value delivery task, and rest of them are either it's overhead, most of them are waste. So that gave us a good lens into what a
That's
typical.
from our task and time model. Yeah,
Yeah,
very cool. Very cool.
yes.
Yeah. Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. Go ahead. Yeah.
And one of the things that we took from there is every single time, every single team will go through this onboarding process to their existing platform, the cloud environment, and they get everything set up from account configuration to the repos and such, even before they start writing the code that's going to deliver value. There's so much of manual waste involved there. So that was a first logical move to do. Like they say, let's streamline this, let's automate that. So the typical process took them like 6 weeks. We brought them down to less than an hour. And this is the backstage was the center of the developer experience for us. And their onboarding was automated to get all the right access. They get a starter kit. So as soon as they get into the backstage, they get all the access straightened up, and then they get a starter repo, which will have like it's like a skeleton. It'll have a blueprint of where your code goes, where your test goes, where does the CI pipelines link in, where does your Argo CD configurations go, how do you manage, and you can tweak with dial with your IAC components and how you can manage that. Because either as a customer, if you don't want to deal with any of the things, the platform, the kits will still work for you. But if you want to go underneath it and control, that's where the approach that we take, the opinionated approach, and the infrastructure as code abilities will give the customers of the platform to control their own destiny if they want to, or if they don't have to. So it's great. So you could be an Apple user, you can also be a Windows user at the same time. If we can go underneath and get nerdy there.
Yeah. Well, thanks. That's great, gentlemen. I really appreciate you going through that. But in an engineering world, we can engineer anything, and with technology, we can do almost anything. But at the end of the day, we only have a finite amount of dollars, right? And that our business has to invest. And we believe that you can do all these things. You're probably thinking, well, there must be a huge price tag for doing all these things. We think you deliver valuable software, production at scale forever, and get a huge return out of that, like a hockey stick. Don't believe me? Let's take a real world example and let's go drain that right now. So, the question, the hypothesis is, would your CFO like a business case that saves $12.3 million for only spending 4.7? I think they might. So here's a real client example using actual numbers. So licensing annualized cost was 9.75. The provider had to provide customized integration services for 5.6 million. Internal support costs were 1.3 million, 5 FTEs, and external support costs from that same vendor ongoing is about 350,000. That's $17 million annualized. We think we can name that tune for way less than that, for $4.7 million. Again, this is a notional platform case, but this is kind of some of our standardized out of the box rack rate pricing. Your platform build out, your onboarding, capability expansion, all that stuff we talked about, that baseline just to get you there is 500,000. The app migration to a new platform with scaling, those 12 weeks is about 500,000. That the platform scaling, bringing all your old apps onto the new platform, we think that's going to be around 2.85 for this particular customer. And then your support costs, we think you need to do it all internally, and we think it'll take you 10 FTEs. We've got an average FTE rate fully burdened at about 1.35. That's how we get to $4.7 million. So spend 17, get rid of that $17 million of cost. You spend 4.7 with us, that leaves you 12.35 million, 72% savings, an estimated return. The ROI calculator financial equation gets you about a 263% ROI. I think that'll beat any CFO's weighted average cost of capital. Potentially, your CFO may be harder than us. Guys, does that sound okay? Does that sound about equal to the experience that you've had as well?
Yes.
Great. And why don't you, on the next slide, let's talk, our average comes from many of our top clients. Liatrio is endorsed by Gene Kim. So if you knew Gene Kim, who's the Phoenix Project author, and, we're a big partner with IT Revolution, but guys, any comments about some of the marquee customers that we've served?
The common signal here is they're complex, highly regulated enterprises, where if you're from that style of a company, if your company feels and looks like that, this is definitely possible. We have done it. And we become the accelerator to come in and do that in the much accelerated time frame. So this is definitely possible. And this is
Does
the
that mean
success.
we can't help any other industries? Does that exclude any other industries that we can't help?
Absolutely not. We we
Oh.
we can work in any multiple of industry because we understand the regulations. We come in and we really want to help understand your business. And that's where we've had the success through these metrics is we've come in and understood their business, understood their needs, and helped them accelerate what they need to do to deliver value.
Well, gentlemen, I can't tell you if we go to the next slide. So what do we think? Proprietary platforms and licensing do not make sense anymore. You guys agree?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, so now in closing, first, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. It's been a great opportunity to spend with you, and we hope you've learned something from us, and we definitely want to learn something from you. But as a takeaway, we've got two assets that we want to make available to you. One, we've got a little booklet on I want to break free. How do you free yourself from your vendor lock-in? And it's kind of a step-by-step guide. We also have our entire playbook we'd like to give to you as well, which kind of is our broader philosophy on how do you, an opinionated guide and how you do enterprise digital transformation. How do you get digital value effectiveness and efficiency, DVE? And then if you have any questions or have any thoughts, are you okay, Oliver and Bjorn, to have folks connect with you?
Totally. I'd love to talk to more people about this.
Great. Our QR code's there. Reach us any way possible. I'd love to help you too if I can, but those are the smart guys. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Take care.